Welcome to Built, Not Burnt Out, the podcast where we challenge conventional thinking about health, mindset, and what it truly means to thrive. I'm your host, Melissa Petersen. I'm an attorney, health coach, the founder of the Becoming Method, fitness instructor, and someone who is passionate about helping people become who they were created to be. And each week, we bring you conversations with leading experts, inspiring stories, and practical strategies to help you improve your physical health, strengthen your mindset, and create lasting transformation. And if you're tired of chasing quick fixes and you're ready to understand the root causes of disease while being and building a healthier, stronger, and more resilient life, you're in the right place today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit from this conversation. Your support helps us continue to bring you evidence-based education and inspiring guests from around the world. Today, I'm honored to welcome Dr. Ana Rosa. Dr. Ana Rosa is a U.S. and Brazilian board-certified radiologist, physician educator, and international speaker and expert in metabolic health. And she earned her MD and PhD in Brazil before completing advanced radiology residency and fellowship training in both Brazil and the United States. She has practiced in both academic and clinical settings internationally. And what makes her work especially unique is the perspective that she brings through diagnostic imaging. Every day, she sees hidden effects of metabolic disease long before people ever experience symptoms. And through imaging, she teaches how visceral fat, metabolic dysfunction-associated liver disease, also known as MASLD, pancreatic fat, sarcopenia, myosteatosis, and even changes in the brain associated with insulin resistance can often be identified years before catastrophic diseases develop. But her work extends far beyond interpreting scans. She's a certified high performance coach, a Shetty Certified Coach, a certified menopause educator, and a grief educator. And she combines evidence based lifestyle medicine with behavior change, stress regulation, and the science of gratitude to help people have sustainable metabolic health and lasting transformation. And today, we're discussing what your body might be telling you long before you ever get sick, why metabolic health affects every organ system, the role of chronic inflammation in disease, and how gratitude, behavior change, and lifestyle medicine can work together to create a healthy, more resilient future for you. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Ana Rosa. And Ana Rosa, thank you so much for being here today.
Elisa, it's my honor. I am so happy to be here. You are a dear friend of mine. We met each other in this journey of building health together. So I am really honored that you hold a safe space for me and I am able to hold your hands as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just tell us how your journey started.
So I am 55 years old, and 10 years ago, my husband died from colon cancer stage 4. At that time, I was in deep grief, I was shattered, I was destroyed, and I was using food, my comfort place, to numb my sorrow, my longing, my pain, my sadness, everything. And I got to weigh 226 pounds. And I don't know if some people are seeing right now, but this was me at that time.
Wow.
I had a lot of inflammation, rosacea, asthma, gastroesophageal reflux, insomnia, and I got to a point to be suicidal because life was completely hopeless, because I was tired all the time, because I was depressed, I couldn't sleep, and on top of that, I was with my grief in my heart. So then I got to understand through the time of struggling with grief that I would be the one taking me out of the hole, right? Together with my faith and together with God. And I started researching about grief, and I was learning until I got to gratitude. And that's how I call myself Ana Rosa Gratitude. So I got to gratitude in 2000. My husband died in February. I got to start learning about gratitude around September, October of 2016. And then in 2017, and later on, I kept studying. And I've learned that for everything that happens in my life, I have to start asking not why is this happening to me, but what is the lesson from life for me here? What does God want from me right now? And by starting asking these questions, I started healing from grief, which is a journey for life. I'll never stop loving my husband. I'll never stop missing my husband. But I shift from pain to peace, from fear to love, and from grief to gratitude faster. And in that time, around 2017, 2018, I started doing a ketogenic diet. I lost weight. I was exercising. But every time something hard would happen, a trigger that would really bring me to my knees, I would go back and I would find comfort in my pantry or my fridge. A fake comfort, a comfort that was numbing my pain again. And therefore, I would be like in this yo-yo pattern: gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. In 2020, I got to meet Sean O'Mara, which is my mentor, my guide, also our provider in so many aspects of our health. And Sean came to my office and he was asking me how could I start describing visceral fat in my reports as a radiologist, CT and MRIs, and even ultrasound, because radiologists could see visceral fat, inflammation, and all the other findings in any kind of imaging exam. And I looked at him astonished because I'm like, visceral fat? What do you want with visceral fat? Because like, as a radiologist, I have been reading exams. I have been a radiologist for 30 years, right? So as a radiologist, we are taught in college to describe what is not normal, right? So then our reports are not gigantic and are straight to the point. And visceral fat is the normal, quote unquote, because 95, 99% of the people have visceral fat. So why are you asking me to describe visceral fat? I'm gonna have to put this in all my reports, which I do now. And
Wow.
yes. And then he got to teach me the importance of visceral fat, which I did not learn in college. I did not learn in trainings in Brazil or at the USA here in America. And I was like, again, horrified because I looked at myself and I knew that I had like severe visceral fat. Because again, like I wasn't 226 pounds anymore, but I was 198, 189. So I still had a lot of visceral fat. Because again, visceral fat, as we know, it's independent from you being obese or being not obese, right? Visceral fat happens in thin people, the thin outside, fat inside. They
Yes.
are the metabolic unhealthy. And I see that daily too, a lot in my imaging exams, either MRI, CT, or ultrasound. But anyway, I started describing, he gave me all the strategies, and I started using the strategies. But again, over and over and over, I would have a trigger because life happens for us, not to us, and life will keep happening, right?
Yes.
I would run to the fridge and to the pantry, and I would not eat one piece of cheesecake. I would eat the whole cheesecake because, like, we are friends and we talk sometimes, and I have the food addiction because every time you seek something to numb a problem, a trigger that you do not want to deal with it, that's addiction, right? Because you are searching for
Mhm.
the comfort outside of you in something else. Could be food, porn, alcohol, could be whatever, but it's addiction. Could be even exercise, but it's addiction. But then I got to understand that I had studying about addiction as well, that I had volume addiction, which is the progression of addiction. You start with addiction, and what happens is your brain wants more, wants more, wants more. That's why people die from overdose, because the initial dose is not what your brain wants anymore. And with food is volume addiction, right? So when you tell
Right.
me, eat until you are satiated, I'm going to look at you and I'm like, I never get satiated. So I really need to pay attention to my body. So again, by numbing my pain, I would always, with the triggers in life, I would always eat not one piece of cheesecake, but the whole cheesecake. And one day I was opening my fridge and I realized, and I asked myself, am I hungry? And then a bell rang, ding, 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 with awareness, right? Because it's not about having the knowledge, it's about having the awareness, putting both together and taking action. So the awareness did, ding, 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 and I'm like, if I'm asking this question, I already have the answer. Because if I would be hungry, I wouldn't be looking at the fridge figuring out what I want to eat. I would be eating whatever would be in front of me, because hunger is a necessity, is a need. So I wasn't hungry of food. I wasn't hungry of water because I drank water and that thing was still making noise in my brain. I was hungry emotionally. And and that's why I say I'm sending a hug from my heart to you, because that's when I realized I needed a hug. And that hug would come from God, from my faith, from myself, from vagus nerve techniques, from walking, whatever it works for you. I had to figure out what worked for me. But at that time, I connected grief, gratitude, and health. Because I'm like, the same path I am walking with grief, that when the pain comes, I have to sit with that, hug that pain, recognize it as a teacher, and decrease the power over me. That's the same thing when I come to the fridge or the pantry. At that moment, I have to hug the pain, ask the lesson, accept it as a teacher, and decrease the power of it over me. And both of them are journeys for life until I take my last breath. I'm gonna decrease their power, the pain power, but they will walk with me forever because they are who I am. My defense mechanisms, right? And then I started doing the strategies following a way of making myself free from the pain, free from the suffering, free from the whatever trigger would come for me, not by closing my eyes, but by desiccating them as if I was in an anatomy class. I'm grabbing my scalpel and I'm going to go deeper and deeper and deeper in that trigger, because that's when I grab my jar of you are loved and I tell the trigger, you are loved because first you kept me safe when I was little, because the majority of the triggers start when we are child, right?
Right.
The triggers kept me safe, but now I can hug the trigger and I can move with it without like succumbing to it, right? And that's it. That's when I started finally being able to progress in the journey of building metabolic health. And with that, as a radiologist, I did my own MRI, and all the white inside the abdominal cavity, which is the central obesity, is visceral fat, which we know that it's pure inflammation, chronic inflammation, and endocrine organ 24/7 functioning in your body for damage, because it's producing interleucin 1, interleucin 6, tumor factor necrosis alpha, increasing cortisol, leading to increased insulin, insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes, diabetes in your brain, which is dementia. And that was me. This was me with a walking inflammation person. And after I started to do these strategies in 2023, with commitment to really face the triggers, I was able to decrease.
Wow.
I was able to decrease significantly the visceral fat. And if you look here, I had myosteatosis, which is the fat replacing your muscles. And my muscles in the abdominal wall were very thin because I was extremely sedentary, which both of them walk together, metabolic dysfunction and being sedentary. And when I started exercising, I was able to make my muscles thicker and I was able to decrease the weight because your body knows how to heal. We just have to give it a vote, right?
Can you describe to people like what myosteatosis looks like? Because not everybody probably knows what that looks like.
Yes. So let's go by parts. There are different kinds of fat in our body. So we have the fat that gets deposited in our liver, and radiologist sees it very well in this kind of like exam that the liver gets darker. And that's the fatty liver that progresses to liver inflammation and can move on to fibrosis, cirrhosis, and even liver cancer. When this is happening, it's also increasing your triglycerides and your blood sugar and your insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, at some point, you are also going to have your pancreas replacement by fat, which is here, right? Your pancreas is supposed to be all gray like that. And here you can see there are lots of white, and this white is fat in your pancreas. And with the progression of insulin resistance, you might evolve to having beta cell dysfunction. Beta cells are the cells in your pancreas that produce insulin, and at some point you might even have a lack of insulin. So then also you have the fat surrounding your heart, which is also my exam. So lots of fat surrounding your heart, which is also detrimental. It's the epicardial adipose tissue, and it's responsible, like Sean teaches so well, for heart attacks, for atrial fibrillation, for cardiac arrhythmias, for aortic aneurysms. And thank God my heart fat went away.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the strategies, right? Taking care of your body. And then you have the fat that is the fat inside the belly, which is the central obesity or the visceral fat. And then you have the fats in your subcutaneous that the superficial is positive because it secretes adiponectin, which is cardiovascular protective. And the deep is not positive, also inflammatory, together with the visceral fat and the fat in your heart and the fat in your liver. Myosteatosis is when you have fat in your muscles. It's muscles with fat. I don't have a picture like that from the legs. I'm going to get for another time. But if you look here, you can see that this is the muscle that is supposed to be gray. But you can see that there are white streaks in the muscle. So the muscle is being replaced by fat.
Yes.
And then if you take action, you are able to make your muscles thicker and you are able to make your muscles grayer again because the fiber muscles are taking the space of the fat.
And so we can actually see this if we look at like cuts of meat in the store and you see the marbling in meat. That's what you're talking about, right? Myosteatosis.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, the marbling. We have marbling as well because we are sedentary and because we have metabolic dysfunction, right? And this marbling in all our muscles, not only in the lower extremities, but in all our muscles, is very important because it leads to frailty, which is sarcopenia, which leads to weakness, muscular weakness, which leads to bad balance, and you're going to fall. And when you are using your muscles less and less, you are also using your bones less and less. So you are losing also bone mass, which increases the risk for falling and getting a bad fracture. And fractures in elderly people are a huge cause not only of mortality, but also a huge cause of increased morbidity, which is your quality of life is gone. You're going to be in a wheelchair, you're going to be in your bed, you're not going to be able to walk, right? You're not going to be able to take care of yourself if you have a bad hip fracture. Yes. And when you start exercising, and you know that so well because you are a coach and you see that in your own clients, when you start exercising and you follow up with a DEXA scan or you follow up with a bioimpedance, You see what you want to see, the progress, right? The progress is the trajectory when the person is losing fat and the person is gaining muscle and the person is gaining bone. Because if the person is losing fat and it's losing muscle and it's losing bone, that's when you have to get a red flag. Wait a second, I have to step up here. I have to do more exercising for strength building, for muscle building, because the muscles, we already know this a lot, the muscles are health for your brain because they release BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. The muscles are health for your mood because they release myokines, which are molecules of hope. The muscles are good for your muscles and your strength and your balance and your vitality and your energy. And the muscles are good for your bones with better bone mass. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, when I saw, I worked with Sean O'Mara as well, and that's how we know each other.
Yes.
We've both been in his alpha group, and
Yes.
and just seeing that in muscles, and and now when I buy meat, I'm very much more cognizant of that marbling, and try to avoid that.
Yes.
But it's there. And even if you think you're in good shape, because I know when I met with Sean, I've been a fitness instructor for 22 years, and it was kind of in the beginning of my carnivore journey, and but I mean, I was, quote, healthy, and I wasn't obese. But when I went there, my visceral fat, I had mine imaged and interpreted like what you're talking about, and mine was horrible. And I haven't gone back to get it redone yet, but I know that it would be less because you can tell. I know I read a book about that. If you can pinch an inch around your waist, that you probably have some visceral fat.
Yeah.
So,
So
but
you are like these people, the tofu, thin outside, fat inside. Like the
yes,
upper high here is normal. It's how you want to be. Thin and without visceral fat. And the lower portion, you can see all the white already showing up that is not showing up in the higher ones. So the lower portion, you have the central white, which is the visceral fat. And these people are extremely important because they believe they are healthy, like you believed you were healthy,
yes,
and you are metabolically unhealthy, right? And that's why radiology, imaging, my field, is so important. And I am advocating for radiology to become a preventive gateway. I can see this every day, and I can alert your provider that you are beginning or you are in in the middle already of being metabolic unhealthy, because this will happen before you have high triglycerides, before you have high blood sugar, before
yes.
even maybe before you might have high insulin already here, but this will happen before you have abnormal liver functions. This will happen before your heart attack.
Or your cancer.
Yes, exactly. So that's where you want to get it. When you are thin outside, fat inside. That's when you want to start taking action. Because if you lead to progression, then you become like I was, extremely sick, but you also have the risk to develop things that are not reversible, right? Like here we have small vessel ischemic disease, which is the insulin resistance in your brain, which is the damage in the small arteries that feed your brain, and that leads to microinfarcts, strokes in your white matter, and this is vascular dementia, right? So you can stop the progression, but there are no studies showing that you could reverse this. So whatever happened, happened. You can't reverse that, right? But you can stop progression. And why it's important to get it when you are still thin outside, fat inside? Because likely you have not developed this yet, because this takes time. It's like when people tell, like, oh, I'm going to have a coronary artery calcium scoring. Yes, good for you. But the coronary artery calcium scoring is showing you the long-term consequence. You are seeing calcium, if you don't have any, that's awesome. It's your baseline. But if you have, it's showing you what happened that after the inflammation was there for 10 years, for 15 years, right? Because you don't start having calcium in your artery. You start with insulin resistance, you start with increased triglycerides, you start with visceral fat, you start with endothelial damage in the arterial wall, and then it's going to become inflamed, and then the fat is going to deposit, which is a soft tissue plaque that could be unstable, leading to heart attack or stroke. And then it's going to calcify, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but before it calcifies, you can see that thin outside, fat inside, or you could see that fat surrounding your heart, or you could see that visceral fat in your abdomen. And that's why it's so important that we come together as a coalition and starts like talking to our representatives in the power of the world for us to get this approved by insurance, for us to get this paid for everybody, because it's important to have a metabolic screening protocol where radiology will guide you to build health, not to treat the problem, but to take action at the root.
So, would you say that it's fair? Because, we all have this. Like you said, 90 some percent of us have visceral fat. And so that is a lot of people. And it's probably almost everyone who's watching this. Very rare not to have visceral fat unless you're like a small kid that hasn't eaten a ton of processed food yet in your diet. But do
And
you
be
think
careful.
yeah. Do you think it's fair to say that our food might be the number one contributor to visceral fat, like the most?
Yes, absolutely. Our food is what is killing us slowly because everything that you eat that becomes sugar, glucose in your liver is killing you. And again, it's not the sugar white powder because some people say, I don't eat sugar. It's not the sugar white powder. It's everything that becomes sugar, aka glucose, or glucose, aka sugar in your liver, in your body. So it's the processed foods, ultra processed foods, alcohol, and the white powder sugar, and excessive carbs, and also milk and vegetable oils, right? All this is going to damage your liver because it's going to be an excess of glucose, sugar in your liver cell. Then there is dysfunction, and then there is fatty liver, and there is dropping of glucose and triglycerides in your blood because the liver can't take care of everything. And then the fat in your abdomen starts eating the triglycerides, and they increase in volume, and later on they increase in number, and that's the visceral fat growing. And that is a vicious circle. It's a cascade of inflammation because then you have the liver is dysfunctional and it keeps dysfunctional, increasing blood sugar, increasing triglycerides, worsening the fatty liver, right? And then increasing blood sugar goes to the pancreas, increasing insulin, increasing insulin, increasing insulin, insulin resistance. When you develop insulin resistance, what is happening in your body too is that all the cells in your body that are supposed to be listening to insulin, they don't listen anymore. And that's the insulin resistance because the receptors of the cells are not working. And at the same time, you have visceral fat increasing, production of cortisol, and production of the other inflammatory substances, and everything is together, one feeding the other. And that happens all day long and all night long.
Wow. And then, when we get to that point, that's where we develop the metabolic disease like cancer, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's. That's where we're getting all of this, and it's from our food.
Yes. Everything comes from our food, everything. And on top of that, Everything comes from the extreme sedentary people we became because we when we were evolving as humans, we were supposed to keep our bodies in movement because that's what we do. We hunt, we fight, we run, right? But then what do we do now? We are sitting, we are laying down on our couch watching TV. We are on a car, we are on an in an office. So we are not intentionally we are not unintentionally exercising anymore. We're not walking around and moving our body. Like my mom, when my mom was young, she would walk to go to college. They didn't have cars, right? Or maybe they
Right.
did, she didn't have money. But like she would walk to college and would come back walking, right? So imagine that. He would walk like 5 miles going, 5 miles coming back. That's a very, who does that now?
Right.
Unintentionally. No,
Right.
right? Yeah.
You're right.
No one. Only if you put the intention and say, I'm going to go walk, I'm going to go to do strength training. We're not hunting, we're not fighting anymore. We're not, right? We're not running from a lion. So we're just sitting and watching Netflix.
Yeah, that and then and our stress, our sleep, there's a lot of factors that affect this, but in my
Yeah.
opinion, I feel like that food has a very
It's
large
the first
effect.
one. I think food is the first thing. And I know that because Sean shared with me some of his research data. And he would say, this person here, this client, he did not want to do anything else. The only thing he did was to remove the processed foods. And there were amazing results. So it
Wow.
all starts in our mouth. It all starts in our mouths. And you might
Wow.
have seen that so many times with your clients that would go
Yes.
do the exercise and they are like, I'm not getting stronger, I'm not building muscle, I'm not losing weight because they thought that the solution would be the exercise. And yes, the exercise is almost like a supplement, right?
Yes.
In addition to the mouth.
You cannot out exercise your mouth.
Nope.
And so like calories in, calories out is a big thing. I don't even when I work with my clients, a lot of them like they're stressed out or they think that I'm going to put them on some exercise program. And nope, that's not what we're doing. We're working on your mind and we're working on your food first because exercise is not going to help you drop weight. It does a lot of other good things for your body, but you will not lose weight exercising. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that I tell my clients. And I feel like when people have fixed their mindset and fixed their food, eventually they get to the point where they crave to do the movement.
Yeah.
And then it naturally comes in. We don't have to stress about just adding something that's overwhelming and we're too tired to do because we're just so
Exactly.
metabolically ill.
Yes.
And so I don't even push people to do that to start.
Yeah, if you are completely right. Without changing your mind, you are not going to get sustainable success in your eating. You're not going to get sustainable success in your exercising because the trigger will come and you're going to run to the food if you don't work in your mind to sit with the trigger. And the exercise will feel like a chore. And that's
Yes.
overwhelming. And again, everything that feels like a chore, it's not really helping you because it's increasing your stress. And when it increases stress, increases cortisol. And what does cortisol feed and vice versa? Inflammation,
Right?
fat. Exactly. So first, always, and that's what I figured out for me, right? When I opened the fridge and I realized, oh my God, right? So first and foremost, it's your mind. It's like, why am I here? Why do I want to do this program? What is going to keep me strong as an anchor when the trigger hits me? Because for me, it wasn't like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds. Oh, I want to be on a size 8 pants. For me was not that, or 6 or 4, whatever. For me was not like all of these would be very superficial because whenever a
Yes.
trigger comes, it hits you like deep, deep, deep in your core. It's psychological ingrained, it's emotional pain. So I had to figure out one day I saw my dad dying because he was extremely sarcopenic with fat in the muscles, extreme visceral fat. He fell, he broke his hip, and he ended up dying. And he was a surgeon, brilliant. My grandma had, which was the love of my life, she had diabetes type 2. She died from a heart attack, small vessels. She also had chronic kidney disease, has amputated some of her toes, and she was blind because diabetes is the
Mhm.
major cause of blindness in the world right now. So when
Wow.
I looked at both of them, I am like, I'm going to do this to honor my dad and to honor my grandma because like I don't need to have diabetes because I was pre-diabetic. But to be honest with you, BS with the blood tests because the blood test is one day only, right? So you go
Right.
there and your blood test is like 105. Oh, you're pre-diabetic, maybe. And then, but when you really look at your blood test, it says like the average of the glucose was 125. 125 is diabetic. On that day, your level was pre-diabetic, but 125 average is diabetic. So
Right.
and diabetes is not a diagnosis that you should take for granted. Oh, I can use
Right.
insulin because yes, insulin is going to help to keep your blood glucose in a, an average of normal. But anytime you are out of the average of normal, because if you don't have diabetes, your own insulin is going to control your blood sugar 24/7, right? It's the balance, the homeostasis of your body. But if you do have diabetes, only when you have your insulin that your blood sugar will be really under control. There will be many times throughout the day that you're going to be very low or you're going to be very high. And this oscillation is going to damage your blood vessels, your small vessels. So don't fool yourself. Diabetes controlled, quote unquote, or not controlled will damage your eyes,
Yes.
kidneys, your body, your heart, your nerves, everything. It will.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and it's horrible. And that's
Mhm.
why we do this. Anna Rosa
Yes.
has her own coaching community, as I do. And we're out there trying to help people
We should
become
join, Melissa.
healthier. We
Yeah,
should.
we
We
should join each other and just have one community. So then we will spread the word and we spread the wisdom.
we totally could. We'll have to talk about that. But and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the show notes like how that you can reach Dr. Ana Rosa, and so that if you're interested in consulting with her, that you can do that. And I would encourage you to, especially maybe even getting imaging done and working with her on that because it's so important because you don't know how sick you are. We think we're fine. And then when you look, and that's what my experience was, and I think yours too. When you look at your visceral fat, you're just like, oh my God. Like you
Yes.
can't even believe it. You can't
And
even believe it.
absolutely. And one thing that Melissa said, because in our journey we were walking together, right? And she would get her own struggles, and I would get my own struggles. And I was also doing things to the T after I started focusing, like facing my fear, my triggers. But I wasn't getting results. I wasn't getting
Yeah.
results. And the thing is, my stress was over the roof. And the more I worried about not getting results, the worse it would be. So then you have to definitely work in your mindset for you to calm yourself down,
Yes.
allow your body to have time to heal, and the results will start coming progressively.
Yes. And I also had that experience. And that's why, we're actually really good people to work with because if you're not a person that has, gotten to the point where you're doing everything right and you're still not seeing the results, that's so frustrating. And a lot of people are there. Those are the people that can help you get through it because we don't need to be perfect. We need to be consistent. But the thing that we need to do is never quit because
Yeah,
when you quit, you never win.
yeah,
And the only way to win this journey is to keep on and
yeah.
just keep doing it because eventually change will come when you're doing the right things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like what you said, never quit, because some people say, Oh, I failed. You did not fail. Something happened that you did not plan it properly. You just have to look at your plan and rearrange, readjust because it wasn't your failure, it was your plan that wasn't proper for that situation. If you have ice cream in your fridge, it's not your failure when you go there and eat the ice cream. The plan is not having ice cream in your fridge. If you want to go to the gym at 6 a.m., don't stay scrolling on your phone until 2 a.m. in the morning. So then 6 a.m. you think you are failing. You did not fail. You simply did not plan the amount of hours you needed to sleep properly,
Right,
right? Yes.
right.
So reassess, readjust, and then you're going to get your progress without perfection.
100%. And that's why working with a coach can help you get there and give you the support that you need because the support just isn't with regular people. Most people don't care or they're eating this stuff and they don't know. And maybe if they do know, they it's addiction that's keeping them in it. And so the only way that you can really have support is to find these communities like what we have and be in those. Uh, and that's the way to keep everything because I've yo-yoed so many times on different things and the only way that I found lasting change was in community
Yeah.
and education and just working on skills. And that's how we do that. And I know the skills to work on. I know how to work on them.
Yep.
And so and
Yeah.
that's how we get to that lasting change. So that's what that you can do. Just reach out and and check these things out because you know it's going to save your life. It's going to save you immense cost from being sick in the future. You can't spend money when you're dead. So, um,
Yes.
so you may as well use it to keep yourself alive and well and have a good quality of life where you can do the things that you want because you have the energy and the strength to do it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for being with me today. I'm very blessed to have you on my podcast, and you know you have a really unique perspective because you don't just talk about metabolic disease; you actually can see it inside of our bodies with the imaging. And I love that you're telling people about it so that they know. And our listeners here are leaving this conversation with greater understanding of how lifestyle choices can shape long-term health and even more important, that it's not too early or too late to make a meaningful change. Um, and so I really thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your passion and your commitment to helping people building healthier bodies and stronger minds and more fulfilling lives. And thank you to everyone for listening to this episode of Built Not Burnt Out. And if you found value in today's conversation, please subscribe. Please like our communities and leave a 5-star review and share this episode with someone that you love. And those simple actions can help reach more people with conversations that can truly change lives. And to learn more about Anna Rosa, please be sure that you check the links in today's show notes. And remember that lasting health isn't built through perfection, it's built through consistent choices, one day at a time. And every decision you make is either moving you towards the life you want or away from it. So until next time, I'm Melissa Petersen, reminding you that you were created to be more. And keep becoming the person you were designed to be and building a life of strength, resilience, and purpose. This is Built, Not Burnt Out, and we'll see you next time.